Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage LaSalle Vaughn.
Thank you, Chris. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Outstanding. Have you ever heard the term dream killers? Has your business called you that? Or what about business prevention unit? Or business stoppage unit? That's my impression of what compliance was when I was in the business, and the exact perception I wanted to break when I became a compliance officer. So last year, I was asked to lead a group of people to change that perception at USAA, and I built a strategy and a plan, and I want to talk to you about that plan, share with you what we did and how we did it, and hopefully give you some nuggets that you can take back and immediately implement in your firm. Does that make sense? Okay, so where's Claire? Claire, did we get everybody to sign the NDA before I share this? Just joking, some compliance jokes. I'm not going to stay up here because I feel restrictive, but let's go on to the next slide. To change a culture, and a culture is defined as a way of people think, move, and behave in an organization. But to change that, you have to understand how people are motivated. And we lean on Maslow. He came up with his theory of motivation back in the 40s. It's been evolved in the 70s, but it still works today. And Maslow talked about the 3 bottom needs as deficiency needs. And when you don't have them, you're fearful and you're anxious. And the basic needs like food and water and a place to sleep, security, that's the safety needs, and that's knowing that you have something stable and you're connected. So let's take this framework into the compliance space. Now, most compliance departments, what we do to our business partners is we threaten their security. You will lose your job if you don't follow these rules, policies, and procedures. And when we do that to the business, 2 things happen. They're either going to fight and resist, or they're going to comply out of fear. And when people comply out of fear, it's short-lived, it's very reactionary, and rarely is it grounded in core values. I've often heard the term policy. When I was in the business and compliance would come in, they start talking policies and procedures and regulators, we shut down. How do you communicate with the business at a much deeper and higher level? Because once you start communicating with them at the 3 basic levels, they're fearful and they're really not engaged. You're going to do what you say, but it's going to be short-lived and it won't last. The top 2 needs Maslow defines as growth needs. And when you reach these top needs, magical things happen. They're esteem needs or achievement or self-respect and respect for others. And it's really interesting when you hit the self-actualization needs for people, you tap into their morals, their values, and their creativity. Maslow actually said that there are 5 traits that get released when you reach a self-actualized person. That's somebody who knows what their purpose is and they live in it. They start becoming more problem solvers. They're more creative. They live by morals, values. They actually they are honest, and they have the courage to speak up when nobody else is, and they can stand by themselves knowing what they do is right. And when we built our program, I wanted to do that. I wanted to tap into that because instead of us pushing the business, when you have self-actualized people in the business, they start to pull compliance from you. They start to own it. And we become their advocates and no longer their paternalistic pushers. Does that make sense? You know, it's interesting because when you lead with core values with your business partners, compliance actually has a significant impact on employee morale and satisfaction. We should have a positive impact, not a negative one. And most of the time, not because of who we are, but just by the perception of compliance, it's on the other side. I'm going to show you how we can flip the script on that. So, armed with Maslow's approach, what I did is I built a 3-year plan for our firm, and last year was all about awareness. And USAA is a company that's dedicated to the military. In 1922, several Army officers got together and put their money together and insured each other for their automobiles because nobody else would insure them. And so I tied our strategy and the pictures and the stories to our history. And so the picture you see there in the blue of a driving instructor with the driver, that symbolizes the driving instructor as compliance and the driver is the business. And the business, they are learning and having situational awareness that they own that vehicle. They are responsible for it. We're there to instruct them. And guess what? You guys own compliance. We did that in year 1. That was last year. This year is about accountability. You see the person holding their license? Guess what? You're accountable. There's different pockets of literacy all over the organization. And certain literacy is low, and we will help you to raise it. And certain literacy is really high, and we're going to take those best practices and share them across the enterprise. Next year is about advocacy. And you see the driving instructor on the right. We are both good drivers. We're both advocates for compliance. Come to us for the novel and new ideas, but we trust your compliance literacy to be able to drive your business appropriately. And come to us when you have needs. Now, after we socialized this plan with the senior leaders and the CEO, I went to every president and every line of business leader and got their buy-in on this plan. Success of year 1, for our internal social networks, this was one of the top 10 most talked about social activities. That's our Compliance and Ethics Week we had last November. We doubled the helpline calls between the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, and 1 in 5 employees viewed the fireside chat. And we have 31,000 employees across our footprint. So the plan was successful. Let me show you a little bit of how we did that. Thinking of how to communicate this to you and thinking about Maslow and motivation, the acronym of REACH came to mind. You start with recognizing the employees, build an emotional connection with each of them, actualize your core values, and if core values in your firm are just shelfware, you have some homework to do to be able to bring it forward so that people live it. Have creative activities. Remember when I showed you the top 2 needs were esteem and self-actualization? When you tap into that, creativity is unleashed. So we wanted to have creative activities that all employees could enjoy. And finally, high-level engagement, code for tone at the top. Let me walk you through this. Recognizing the employees. Now, experts say that recognition is one of the cornerstones of a great employee experience. So when we typically recognize the employees in compliance, what is it? You messed up, David. Go fix that. You're not good enough. This is what the employees are thinking and feeling when they see us, which is why when I became a compliance officer, and I've been at the company for years, and when I would walk around, people would say, hello, hi, LaSalle. When I became a compliance officer, they'd be like, when I walk into a room, they would stop talking. And I was like, man, I'm the same person, but the perception of compliance that we had to break. We want to be the person that people embrace, not step back and hold their breath. So we tried to recognize, and we flipped the script, and what we did is we had an award ceremony where we caught people doing good and recognized them in front of their peers, their leaders, and the entire company. And so I asked every compliance officer from every line of business, give me an individual nominee and a team nominee. And we would calibrate on them over 2 criteria, very simple. Compliance and ethics accountability and living the core values. And that calibration session was pretty interesting because my bank compliance officers were saying, oh my gosh, we learned this, and I didn't know they were doing this in the business. And most of the time, we think that everything is bad in compliance, but if it was that bad, we wouldn't be in business. None of us would be because the business are doing great things. We just need to show them and encourage them. So we had this calibration ceremony meeting, and then the CCOs went back to their line of business presidents, and they start talking about the good things they're seeing when we're cross-pollinating, and the presidents are becoming very proud, and the relationships with the business and the compliance officers got a lot stronger. Just through that simple exercise. Now I'm going to show you some pictures here from our Compliance and Ethics Week, and I'll give you some of the stories, and I'll tell you about the other 2 bullets in just a moment. The pictures you see here, the one on your left, this is our fireside chat. This was the capstone event of Compliance and Ethics Week, and from the nomination ceremony, what we did is all the nominees, we sent them ribbons, certificates signed, and those gold capes. And the capes I'll tell you more about in a minute. They're part of the theme. And then we had a red carpet ceremony. And when those recipients received those ribbons, they would post them at their cubes. And then they started taking pictures of them and sharing them on social media, internal and external. And they started telling their family members about it. And people started calling me, how do I get a ribbon? What do I need to do? Well, you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and you've got to be compliant. Really? And so it became something that was very desirable. And these gentlemen here, they work on our digital team. They were nominated, and they received an award for digitizing marketing compliance advice. And what does that mean? So in marketing compliance, we have a whole process and a checklist of things that we have to go through. If you'll imagine when you create a Word document and then you hit spell check, and it checks the number, the words, the spelling, the Fleshman-Kincaid reading level, and it scans the document to make sure that you said everything correctly. They use robotic process automation to take marketing compliance advice to scan marketing digital and paper pieces to be able to say, use this word. You can't use the word free, use this other word. If you use this line of business, these appropriate disclosures need to apply. We didn't tell them to do that. They did it on their own. Not only did it speed up the process by 40%, it saved $2 million in the business and FTEs, full-time employees. So they were nominated and received an award. The team on the other side that are standing on the red carpet, that's our property and casualty underwriting team. They self-identified 10 issues, fixed the problems, and then developed their own monitoring to do that. Now that's typically what we have to tell them to do. But they did it on their own. Definitely something that should be recognized and celebrated. And the interesting thing about compliance in the company, it's like the air conditioning and it's like the toilets. When they don't work, everybody's upset and not happy. So we have to bring these people and what they do to the forefront, and they were very excited about it. This next picture here, this was Compliance and Ethics Recognition Day. And so for every employee, about 250 in our compliance department and our ethics department, we gave them blue capes, masks, and 2 certificates, and we told them, go to your business partners and go to their team meetings or staff meetings or town halls and find something they're doing good and recognize them in front of their employees. The guy on your left, his name is Mark. He's the head of HR compliance. So Mark comes into my office and he's like, closes the door, slams it, and is like, LaSalle, are you out of your, some choice language, mind? You want me to go to the business and wear a cape? Are you crazy? I let him talk and get it out of his system, and he's kind of a CrossFit aficionado, and I said, Mark, you don't have to wear the mask. You don't have to wear the cape, but just go recognize the employees. And if they laugh at you, I will come to your team, and I'll do 50 sit-ups in front of your team at your staff meeting. But if it works, you got to do 50 in front of mine. And so I hit that competitive edge on him, and he was like, that's a bet, LaSalle. Slams the door and walks out. So what we asked them to do is, once you do this, post this picture to our social site so everybody can see it. Mark was the first one. He went out to they had a town hall with over 200 HR employees. He asked to get on the agenda. He goes in front of the people. This woman who receives the award, she starts crying and just talks about that, how she's been doing this at the company for so long. It's really nice to be recognized. They paused the agenda and they talked about best practices for compliance for the next 20 minutes. And then after the meeting, people started coming to Mark saying, Mark, how can I get you to come to our team? We want to improve our compliance. Mark comes back to me and says, I need a couple more capes, so I need to do this again. And I said, walked out and I said, hey, Mark, do you want me to hold your feet or put your feet underneath my dresser there, my file cabinet? And so I held his feet and he did his 50 sit-ups for me. The team on the other side, that's our life compliance team. And the guy in the front, that's Derek. The lady in the white jacket is Rachel, and that's Jessica. They are life compliance advisors, and they decided to go as a team and recognize their business partners for just following the appropriate procedures and doing the right thing. And they did that about 4 or 5 times, and they posted that to our internal social sites. So the employees love to recognize on the positive side, and the business employees love being highlighted for doing the right thing. An emotional connection. Now, in the workforce, you have from the greatest generation all the way to millennials and everybody in between. And so we have to find something that actually resonates with everyone. And you saw the capes there. And so I noticed that there is a huge superhero theme going on in our culture right now. I mean, Wonder Woman just came out. Spider-Man comes out in a couple of weeks. And so I said, how do we tap into something like that, but do it in a positive, professional, corporate respect. And so I started researching superheroes and tried to figure out what makes superheroes so successful. And the Greeks had heroes in their mythology, Hercules and Achilles, and ours are Spider-Man, Superman. And we love superheroes because they actually save us from the bad guys. And in all the superhero worlds, the superheroes actually have a story of origin. So I'm going to show you here, we had a superhero theme. And the origin story is very important for superheroes. And why is it important? Because it's typically an average, everyday person that gets a superhero power and does something good. And when they do that, it makes us feel good. And despite the decay that's happening in our world, it makes us feel good. So what I wanted to tap into that, and so that comic strip you see there is, I wanted to tap into every employee saying that at home you might be Peter Parker, you might be Diana Prince, you might be Clark Kent, but when you come through those turnstiles, you're a compliance and ethics Spider-Man, Superman, or Wonder Woman. And that's what we try to do in our culture. And we even try to include the work-at-home employees because we have a significant contingent of employees that work from home. So when they sit down and log in, they're superheroes as well. Actualizing the core values, that's very important. Now, our core values are aligned to the members that we serve, and that's the military. And I think David Baird was here yesterday, and he talked about, he was a naval officer, and when I saw him in uniform, about almost 20 years ago, I was a naval officer. Our core values are honor, courage, and commitment. And at USAA, our core values are service, loyalty, honesty, and integrity. And they have to be alive in the culture, but if they're not, they won't work. And when we designed every activity, creative or not, in the strategy and plan, we had just two simple messages. We all own compliance and ethics, and you saw those in the picture. And if you see something, say something. Those were the simple key messages. Now this was what you see on the screen is the capstone event where we invited a speaker to come, and we had our award ceremony. In the picture, you see the gold capes there? Those were all the nominees, and they proudly wore their gold capes. And so we had David Robinson, and if you don't know who David Robinson is, some people know who David is. San Antonio is our headquarters and the home of the San Antonio Spurs. David Robinson played for the Spurs for almost 15, 20 years. He's a Naval Academy graduate. He's one of our members. And he played, two-time NBA champion, led the Spurs to those two championships, MVP. He is not only a great basketball player, a phenomenal philanthropist, but he lives his life according to core values. And the guy can't even walk down the street in San Antonio without getting stopped. So we found a speaker that resonated with everyone and that lived and embodied what we were trying to do. And when David came to speak, he told amazing stories of how he transformed the locker room and people having core values and doing the right thing, and that transformed the level of play on the field. And he sat there with the fireside chat with our COO. Creative activities. Remember we talked about the top two on Maslow, which were esteem and self-actualization? Well, when you tap into those and unleash those, creativity flows from employees. And so we had activities every day during that compliance and ethics week that allowed people to express themselves, and they took it to some places that I was very surprised. I'm going to show you some pictures. We had Ethics Facilitator Day. Now, we have 31,000 employees across our entire footprint. And that's from London, Frankfurt, Tampa, San Antonio, Phoenix, and then financial centers all over the country. And so with a company that size, our ethics department uses volunteers in each department. And those volunteers, we gave them red capes and asked the people to find your ethics facilitator. They'd give them a quick lesson on the ethics and how to find them, how to handle conflicts of interest, and then take a picture and post it. And that guy in the picture is Mac. And we never told them all to get masks. They all came to our office and got masks and took these pictures and posted them. We had Wear Your Favorite Superhero Shirt Day. And the lady there, I think she's in our Chesapeake office. And some people call it, can I wear my Batman costume? Yes. Don't jump from the rafters, though. And so people would wear their costumes and shirts that day. And then we had these stress balls that had I Own Compliance and games that people would play and post them on our social network. And so this all was happening across our enterprise. This picture here, this mural that you see here, these are our procurement team. And these guys love reading contracts. I mean, they just eat it up. And they decided to have a contest of who could have the best picture with their ethics facilitator, and this picture actually won. That's my friend Joyce there. We had mannequin challenges where people would post mannequin challenges where they'd have staff meetings and all of a sudden everybody would freeze. And then a compliance superhero would come in and save the day and teach everybody ethics. Those were posted on our social site. This guy in Colorado, he's the ethics officer there, and they posted an iMovie in a comic book format, the entire call center on their break. They filmed this 3-minute movie. It was phenomenal. That's creativity unleashed, all for the key messages of we all own compliance and ethics, and if you see something, say something. Last, but definitely not least, is the high-level engagement. You need the tone from the top. You can have the groundswell of support from the bottom, but unless the senior leaders are involved and inculcated into the process, the tone from the top will be tone deaf. So I went to the CEO and said, can you kick us off? He agreed. The COO actually did the fireside chat with David Robinson. I went to the head of HR and said, can we get you to talk about having compliance and ethics conversations in each employee's quarterly coaching conversation? The answer was yes. They actually are putting that in our performance evaluations this year. Then I went to the head of legal and said, would you talk about the regulatory environment and how important it is? She said yes. So we had that critical element, the tone from the top. What you see here is a picture of the CEO after he spoke. He didn't just come talk. That's Stuart Parker. He didn't just come talk about compliance and ethics and just how important it was and talk from a textbook. He told a story about, and this is kind of a funny story, but it resonates on what the importance of compliance and ethics is. He said there was an employee, an ethics report he read, where an employee noticed a contracted employee every day going to the breakfast line, getting 3 sausages, eating 1 on the way to the register, and paying for 2. And the employee noticed it 3 days in a row just to make sure they weren't seeing a one-time thing, approached the contractor and said, hey, you should pay for that. And the contractor told the employee, come on, a firm this size? This is not even 5 cents. Y'all can afford this. The employee told the contractor, that's not right. That's not in accordance with our core values. Went and reported it. Now, we are an organization that supports the military, and we have 20% of our workforce is military, and we hire some old snipers and that are in our security force, and a lot of people like Tackleberry that exist at USAA. So they did a sting operation in the cafeteria. No joke. The guys are in there, newspaper. They watched the guy for 2 days. He did it twice, and they walked him out of the building. And the CEO told the story saying, if we have that level of core values for sausage, we can have that level of core values for the business. But you're going to remember that story, aren't you? Which is why he told it. The picture you see on the other side is David Robinson, who's 7'1", and you see Carl Liebert, our chief operating officer. He's 6'6", and then Stuart, he's 6'2". He looks like the short guy. And that's the picture right before they went in for the fireside chat. What you don't see is behind the official photographer, there's over 150 employees with their iPhones and their Samsung cameras taking pictures, posting. David Robinson here to talk about compliance and ethics. We're going to hear about ethics from David Robinson on our social, internal, and external, and it went viral. Once again, the key messages that we wanted went out into the community. So I've given you a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I want to summarize really quickly some key nuggets for you. Recognize the employees. People typically expect us, compliance, to find the wrong and the bad. Flip the script and catch them doing good. They'll appreciate it and invite you in. Make an emotional connection if you build a program. Take the superhero theme, it works, or come up with your own that's creative. Connect with your greatest generation and your millennials and everybody in between. Actualize your core values. Now, if it's shelfware at your firm, make sure that it's alive and growing. That's your homework to do before you actually use them. Have creative activities. Remember Maslow's top 2. When you hit self-actualized employees, you actually release creativity. But have activities that people can be involved in and have fun and give them space to be creative. And finally, high-level engagement. Tone from the top. You need a groundswell of support and plan from the bottom. But when the leaders and the frontline employees are all involved, there's nothing that can stop you or your organization. And I'll close with this picture here. Do you see that young lady there? Do we create a contagious culture of compliance because the regulators say we should do it? No. oh, it's a check in the box, perhaps. We do it because that little girl holding the flag, her family protects our physical security, and in order for them to have peace of mind in serving our country, we facilitate their financial security. It's about the customer, it's about the member, and it always should be. Thank you. I'll open the floor up to questions or comments if you have any. Oh, thank you.
Hi. I work for a manufacturing company.
Okay.
And I'm definitely going to take the idea about implementing the good side of compliance. Compliance just started 2 years ago at our company, so it's very new, and of course it was very standoffish from the organization. And we have been going through and implementing a lot of things, and my coworker here, we're both the compliance team. So it's going to be very important for us to bring some positive side into the compliance, and I appreciate your information.
Thank you. Good luck in setting up your program.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir.
My name's John. I was curious if there was challenges along the way. It almost seems so easy, but I'm curious if you could, for the audience that may be going down the same path or may endeavor to do so, is there anything to look out for? How did you overcome challenges and what you implemented?
It's a great question. When we have several departments at our company, we have compliance, audit, risk, and ethics, and we are all part of the control community. When I was asked to do this, it was June of last year, and I was given 5 months to make this happen, and I said the whole control community should come together and do this as a team. So I brought all the key players together. We had a full-day planning session, and we had an approach. And then the next day, audit and risk say, we're not interested in this. And I'm like, this is an enterprise thing. We should do this together. We're not interested. So I didn't get that support. And I talked to my chief compliance officer, and I said, this is a board deliverable. We have to get this done. And I got 400 volunteers from around the enterprise that actually worked, and lots of planning, lots of exercise, lots of hours. And after we executed the entire week and the results that you saw, the chief risk officer calls me at home at dinner and says, we missed this one, LaSalle. That'll never happen again. We should go forward as a team and represent the enterprise. We will be with you guys next year. So it's a lot of work, but the results and the purpose are what I think matter the most. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments?
Sorry, I'm hiding.
There you are.
So I just wanted to know, do you feel like you should definitely bring in your whole organization, even if they don't have any awareness of this part of the company? Because we're a small shop, but a lot of people have no idea that this is a part of our company. So you really should bring those in, even if they have nothing to do with that?
I think so. The regulatory environment is only getting more scrutiny, and everyone should be a compliance officer. And when you think about manufacturing, when they make cars, they don't design Mercedes and have the safety stuff at the end. They design it from the very beginning, and everybody is aware of it. So you have a great opportunity to get everybody involved, teach them what they should know and what their role is, and when to bring you in. And your firm and your results will be a lot better for that. It may be an uphill battle at first, but persist, and it'll work out. You're welcome. Thanks for the question. Any other questions or comments? Well, Alex, Claire, thank you guys for the invite, and I want to hand it back over to Chris.